City Council. First on our agenda, councilors are already conflicts of interest. See none, I'll move on to the minutes. Minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 28, 2017. I have, let's count. Councilor Wilson's not here.
Yes.
Councilor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Ugalini, that the minutes on the regular council meeting held on June 20, 2017 be received and adopted.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Minutes of the special council meeting held on June 20th, 2017. Councilor Long.
Mr. Mayor, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Sharon that the minutes of the special council meeting held on June 20th, 2017 be received and adopted.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I'll move on to my mayor's report. It is with great pleasure that I announce that 2 new additions to the City of Thorold's team. Julie Hanna has accepted the position of Senior Planner with the Development and Engineering Services Department, Planning Division. Julie comes to us from the town of Pelham, where she was working as a Senior Planner. And welcome, Julie.
Thank you very much.
And I would also like to welcome Daniel Dixon to the city. He has accepted the position of Building Permit Expediter within the Department of Development and Engineering Services. Daniel comes to us from the city of Welland, where he was working as a building permit applications technician. Please help me in welcoming both Julie and Dan. Thanks for the public open house for input on the multi-year accessibility plan is being held tomorrow, Wednesday, July 5th at Thorold Senior Center from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. The city recently hosted 2 public meetings, one in regards to the exotic animal bylaw, the other pertaining to downtown parking strategy. Each are moving towards final decisions, and reports from staff will be coming to council in the very near future. On behalf of council and our community, I would like to extend our thanks to the entire Age-Friendly Committee and city staff that arranged and hosted an incredible, successful Age-Friendly Forum on June 21st. This sold-out event featured several speakers, which began with a presentation from the Honorable Devika Damerla, Minister of Seniors Affairs. The minister was followed by Sarah Webster of the Ontario Age-Friendly Communities Planning Outreach Initiative. However, the highlight of the event was the keynote speech delivered by 96-year-old Hazel McCallion, the longest-serving mayor in Canadian history. And I would personally like to thank Donna Del Vecchio for your efforts.
Thank you.
You went the extra 5 miles in getting this successful event off the ground, and we had 300 people in the room, so it was very, very successful. The City of Thorold's Canada Day community celebration and Blues on the Battlefield Festival has come to an end, and this year's events were without a doubt a spectacular affair. It was a great pleasure to be able to celebrate our nation's 150th birthday with so many people from our community. Events like these make me very proud to be able to say I live in this fantastic city. We offer our thanks to all of the volunteers and staff that made sure the events went off without a hitch, despite a few bumps in the road. I look forward to starting Canada's next 150 years here in Thorold. And again, I have to extend my hearty thanks to you, Donna, and Ginger. They worked tirelessly the entire weekend. I can't say enough about your efforts, and I thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the councilors that also that took part. I know Councilor Ugalini, you're there the entire weekend for both functions. Brett, thank you. Sam, thank you. Anthony, Jim, you're there all weekend. Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for being there. It was a great weekend. We had a lot of fun, and that concludes my report. communications. Items referred to council. Councilor, Whalen, you take the gavel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind presenting your first motion, please.
Thank you. I gotta read a book here. Or a novel, I'll say a short novel. Anyways, this how it has to do with my attendance at the Great Lakes Initiative in Montreal last month. And there's a total of eight resolutions I'm bringing forward over the next few council meetings, 3 tonight and 3 the next meeting and 2 the following meeting. But I'll just give you the outline of what they're about. 1, restricting the use of coal tar sealants in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River Basin. 2, aging oil pipelines in Line 5. 3, Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Federal Restoration Funding. 4, maritime industry. 5, resolutions in support of the designation of the NOAA Wisconsin's Lake Michigan National Marine Sanctuary, submitted by the cities of Manitowoc, Port Washington, and Sheboygan. 6.1, action on pharmaceutical and personal care products, PPCP, pollution in the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence, submitted by the city of Mississauga. Commitment to publicly managed water service, submitted by the city of Montreal. And the final one is 8, designating the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River System as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, submitted again by the city of Mississauga. Those are the 8. I'm only submitting 3 tonight. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Payne, whereas the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River provide drinking water to more than 48 million Canadian and U.S. citizens in the freshwater system, including its rivers, streams, and tributaries, supports significant ecosystems and fisheries that are dependent upon good water quality. And whereas runoff from permeable surface is a well-known vector for pollutants entering our waterways, particularly after rain events. Whereas paved concrete or asphalt surfaces such as driveways, parking lots, playgrounds, or fixtures in municipalities that may be coated with a sealant, a seal coat sealant or driveway sealer for aesthetic purposes or to increase the lifespan of the surface containing refined coal tar, known as coal tar-based seal coat. And whereas coal tar-based seal coat is made with coal tar pitch, which results from the process of coking coal. And coal tar pitch is a group of 1 human carcinogens and contains polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are, so in short form PAH, are persistent organic compounds, several of which are known are probably human carcinogens. That's the most important paragraph, so I'll skip the rest of the whereases and go to the resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative encourages US EPA and Environmental and Climate Change Canada and Health Canada to continue their evaluations of coal tar sealants and take the necessary action at federal level to ensure protection of human health and our waterways from harmful pollution. So I think the key words here is to continue their evaluation. Be it further resolved that the city's initiative call on the province of Ontario and Quebec and the state of Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin to explore actions that can be taken at provincial and state levels to ensure human health and environmental protection from coal tar sealants. Be it further resolved that the city's initiative encourages member municipalities to become educated on the issue of coal tar sealants and consider implementing a local ordinance or ban on the use of coal tar sealants within their respective municipalities. And be it finally resolved that the city's initiative will form a working group to support its members as they consider the issue of coal tar sealants and actions they can take to address this pollution source and educate citizens on its potential risk. So I knew nothing about coal tar sealants, so I went to this, the initiative. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, ask for any discussion of the motion? Therefore, put to the vote, all in favor? Opposed? So moved.
thank you,
And
Council.
your second motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Whalen. Whereas the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River are the largest freshwater ecosystem in the world, providing drinking water to more than 48 million people and serving as the economic base for much of Canada and the United States. Whereas crude oil and its derivative are a key component of energy sources used in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence region and all over North America, and whereas crude oil needs to be transported from the production regions in the western part of North America to industrial sites in the Midwest, Northeast, and Southeast in order to be refined, transformed, and distributed, and whereas pipelines are a safer and more cost-effective way to transport oil, gasoline, and other petroleum products than rail, truck, or boat. And whereas over 50% of U.S. oil, gas pipelines are more than 50 years old and were built prior to current construction and safety standards according to the Department of Energy's Quadrennial Energy Review. Whereas the Enbridge Energy Line 5 pipeline is a set of twin 64-year-old pipelines carrying 23 million gallons of light crude oil and natural gas liquids daily under the Straits of Mackinac. And whereas the currents in the Straits of Mackinac at peak volumetric transport can be more than 10 times greater than the flow of Niagara Falls, and according to a 2014 University of Michigan study, are the worst possible places for an oil spill in the Great Lakes. Whereas the state of Michigan granted Enbridge an easement to operate Line 5 under the Straits in 1953, requiring the pipeline be no less than 0.812 inches thick, but some areas are up to 41% thicker than required due to milling defects in the original construction. And I'll go right to, I think I hit the main points there. Now therefore be it resolved that the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Cities Initiative calls on oil pipeline operators in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Basin to maintain public transparency and accountability for all pipelines, as well as robust safety, maintenance, and emergency preparedness in accordance with state and federal standards. And be it further resolved that the city's initiative encourages oil pipeline operators in the basin to ensure structural and operational integrity of oil pipelines to protect the health and safety of the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River and the people of the region. And be it further resolved that upon the release of the Michigan Pipeline Safety Advisory Board's forthcoming independent report on Line 5, the city's initiative encourages Enbridge to commit to compliance with the report's recommendations by the city's initiative's 2018 annual meeting, or the city's initiative will consider calling for halted operations of Line 5. And be it finally resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to the Michigan Governor and the Michigan Attorney General, the Michigan Pipeline Safety Advisory Board, the U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Administration, and the National Energy Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any discussion of the motion? Being none, I'll put to a vote. All in favor? Opposed? So passed. And your third one, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Nicolini. Whereas the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence system is one of the largest sources of fresh water in the world and a natural resource treasure in North America, shared by the United States and Canada. And whereas this fresh water resource provides drinking water to more than 48 million Canadians and Americans. And whereas the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River system is the foundation for the 5.8 trillion US economy of 8 US states and 2 Canadian provinces, and would have the third largest economy in the world if the basin was considered a country. Whereas the waters were contaminated over many years in both countries from industrial, agricultural, and municipal sources of pollution, and whereas the United States and Canada entered the Boundary Waters Treaty in 1909 and the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement in 1972, with amendments in 1978, 1987, and 2012 to address the problems of the Great Lakes and to protect and preserve them. Whereas significant progress has been made over almost 50 years in restoring and protecting the resource, examples of which include delisting 7 areas of concern, the most toxic and polluted areas, which are remnants of the industrial history of the region. And whereas this progress has been the result of significant public and private sector investment over the years, whereas local governments in Canada and the United States have invested over $15 billion annually in protecting and restoration efforts, according to a 2008 local investment in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence study. And whereas one of the most significant sources of public investment for the United States at the federal level has recently been the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, which has made over $2 billion available for work over the past 7 years. And whereas the President of the United States has proposed eliminating all of the funding for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative in 2017 and 18, and whereas federal investment programs like the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative in the U.S. are critical to leveraging local, state, and private investment. And whereas President Trump's administration has justified eliminating the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative by placing the responsibility in state and local hands, we maintain that the protection and restoration of this international freshwater treasure is a shared responsibility with the federal government, and in fact, the U.S. and Canadian federal governments have major responsibilities set out in the international agreement that governs the management of the resource. And whereas Canada has made significant investment in water infrastructure and cleanup of toxic hotspots over the years, but the level of federal investment has not matched the significance of the resource and magnitude of the challenge. Whereas these budgets come nowhere near addressing the need of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence, and will slow down or stop the restoration efforts and the economic recovery in the region. And whereas the elimination of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative in the U.S. would abruptly halt critical protection and restoration efforts around the cleanup of toxic hotspots, preventing Asian carp from entering the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River system, addressing polluted runoff that cause toxic algae blooms, and much, much more. Whereas the elimination of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative from the U.S. federal budget threatens to not just the source of drinking water for more than 48 million U.S. and Canadian citizens, but jeopardizes a $7 billion fishery, transportation for industry and agriculture, quality habitats for fish and wildlife, and much more, all of which rely on clean, navigable water. And whereas the elimination of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative in the U.S. federal budget and the lack of significant dedicated funding in the Canadian federal budget signifies a shirking of responsibility by the federal governments of the U.S. and Canada in protecting the water we drink, the fish we eat, and the beaches and waters we play and work around, in and around. And whereas the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative commends the bipartisan support the Great Lakes have received in the U.S. over the years by the U.S. Congressional Great Lakes Task Force, now therefore be it resolved that the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative calls on the Congress of the United States to appropriate the full $300 million authorized for Great Lakes Restoration Initiative in the 2017 and 18 budget. And be it further resolved that the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative encourages the Canadian federal government to work collaboratively with the provinces, local governments, First Nations, and Métis, and the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence stakeholders to develop a common vision for the Great Lakes St. Lawrence ecosystem and economy, and an investment strategy to support this common vision. This will include an increase in funding to support economic and environmental infrastructure and better coordination of these investments at all levels of government. And be it further resolved that local governments continue the investments they are making to protect and restore the resource at the levels they have in the past. And be it further resolved that the state and provincial governments also recognize the importance of the resource in their budget. And be it finally resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Canada, the governors of 8 Great Lakes states, the premiers of Quebec and Ontario, the Canadian Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and the Administrator of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any discussion of the motion? Councilor, yeah.
Thank you very much. I waited till now because they're all good motions. And hopefully the Trump will change his mind, specifically the G20 is this coming week. And he's going to be up against most of the rest of the world when he gets there and starts spouting off about the environment. We all know that the partnerships should be shared and the money should come from all levels of government because the federal government has the most money to be put into the projects that are at hand. So I hope that the United States and specifically the Congress will come forward and vote against Trump's initiatives to destroy the environment and will come forward and be part of the process and continue the environmental aspects of keeping this water fresh and so that we can utilize it and enjoy it.
The key point that I'd like to stress is when talking to other mayors and in the discussions, there are a lot of panel discussions. The initiative was praised a lot, the municipalities for their efforts. And just like what we're doing in Thorold, replacing old sewer waters, we're separating water and sewer. So they seem to think the municipalities are doing their job, and they expect other levels of government to basically step up. That's my comment. I thank council so far.
Thanks, Mayor. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Sharon?
Just a comment here and question. Vance Badaway, our local MP,
Yeah.
also getting copies of all this.
Yeah, he'll get copies.
Yeah,
I don't see it in here, but I would hope that if someone would make that amendment, I would gladly accept it.
Well, that would be I think we need to get our local guy who really does understand that, being a former mayor in this area, knows the purpose of all 3 of these motions would certainly be part of his responsibility to us and to the rest of the people who live in this area, to work as hard as he possibly can to get the Prime Minister to understand what's going on. I think the Prime Minister does understand. It's that guy on the other side of the river that's the problem.
Yeah, I would ask someone I'll accept that as an amendment. Can we add our MPP also?
Yes.
That's something to use, Mayor?
I'll accept that as an amendment also.
Any further discussion? That being said, I'll put to a vote. All in favor? Opposed? So passed.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry I put you through all that, Dan.
Mr. Mayor, can we put a friendly motion to all 3 motions? I don't know whether we include our AP on the other 2 motions also. Can we make the motion and all, if we don't mind, please?
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Where did I leave off? Okay, carry on. City of Niagara Falls, OLG modernization framework. I'll call on Councilor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Sharon, that the correspondence received from the City of Niagara Falls dated June 22nd, 2017, requesting the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Commission to bring to an end to the ongoing lottery request for quotation RFQ process concerning operating contracts for Casino Niagara and Falls Community and City Resort, and to persuade the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation to honor the terms and the spirit of the original agreements between the City of Niagara Falls and the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, wherein it promised the City of Niagara that the casinos situated in the City of Niagara Falls would be operated as drivers of the local economy of the City of Niagara Falls and the region of Niagara be received and supported.
Thank you, Councilor. Items for discussion in this report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Items referred to city staff. Councilor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Whalen, that the communications on the list of correspondence 5F be received for information purposes and files.
Items for discussion. Councilor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I ask the acting CAO to report back at the next meeting, as this issue is referred to the acting CAO, and it's on the permission to use the old logo jerseys for Thorold minor hockey for tryouts. This is a time-sensitive issue, so if we can get a report back and we'll vote on it next meeting. Thank you.
I'll just, any comments to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. List of committees, minutes, correspondence from volunteer committees. Councilor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Ugolini, that the communications and list of correspondence 5D, minutes and correspondence from volunteer committees be received for information purposes and filed.
Thank you, Councilor. Again, are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Reports, correspondence from the region of Niagara. Councilor Pion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Neal, that the communications of the list of correspondence 5E, reports, correspondence from the region of Niagara be received for information purposes and filed.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Items for information purposes. Councilor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Whalen, that the communications on the list of correspondence 5F be received for information purposes and filed.
Thank you, Councilor. Any items for discussion? Councilor Neal and Councilor Ugolini.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Item number 4, which is the Niagara Catholic District School Board, has passed a motion to consolidate the 2 schools here in Thorold, and they're sending the information and report to the ministry in order to get the funding for that to happen. I'm going to be bringing the motion forward when the age-friendly committee will bring forward a number of motions and recommendations at the August meeting to look at long-term care and affordable housing on one of the properties, whichever one they decide to move from, which probably will be St. Charles School. So it's a beautiful piece of property, so we need to take a look at it, and we have the first right of refusal in order for that to happen. So I don't want us to lose it if we could at all look for the long-term care and affordable housing issues being resolved in downtown Thorold.
Thank you for those comments, Councilor. We surely don't want it in the hands of student housing builder.
Yes.
I think we have, with the first right of refusal, we have a great opportunity to be in full control of that property. Thank you for bringing that forward. That's the motion on the floor. I'll call a question. All those in favor, speakers to it. The motion. Are there any speakers? Oh, there's no motion. Just a comment?
That's just
He's going to bring notice.
I want to bring it forward as a motion.
We bring, on August 19th, I'll be bringing it forward.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on then. I'll call a question here. Oh, it's across to you, sorry.
On the same issue, because of the Catholic School Board modified pupil accommodation review, I think it's a good time for us to write a letter to them and address the issue of the old tennis courts on the corner and find out from them what's the status of those tennis courts related to whatever project they do, because it's an eyesore and something has to be done there, and whether they're going to be using that property as part of the addition or whether we can get them to put a multi-use hardcourt facility on that. But we should find out what their strategy is and how it affects that tennis court area.
So you want a letter from the mayor's office?
A letter from the mayor's office to the board and ask them how that tennis court property fits into this addition or whatever. Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking with Pat Myrtle, our trustee last week, it all depends on the financing, what the proposal is for that whole corner. We have to redevelop the whole class situation as far as making the classrooms smaller for the smaller children. So that would be a big factor once that comes to the fore, a little bit closer to time.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Okay, I'll call the question on items F. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Reports. Minutes of the General Committee meeting held on June 20th, 2017. Councilor Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Whalen, that the minutes of the General Committee meeting held on June the 20th, 2017 be received and adopted.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Other business.
Bring us up, Ken.
Hurry up, quick, get through it. Even Jack's surprised.
Other business. We'll move on to bylaws. Bylaw number 66, 2017. 2017. Councilor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was waiting to sit here for 10 minutes while everyone else spoke. Anyway, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Peel, the lead be given to introduce the following bylaw. Bylaw number 69-2017, being a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2140-97 by removing the holding symbol from certain lands with Rolling Meadows subdivision phase 5, now zone Rolling Meadows RM, R1BH zone, RM, R1CH zone, RM, R2H zone, and RM, R3H zone. And bylaw number 70-2017, bylaw to establish certain offices for the purposes of the corporation of the city of Thorold and to appoint persons to hold such offices, and the same now be read a first time.
And you're like me, Fred. You knew exactly what those RMs and RMs.
Oh, I know exactly.
You know that, like,
Yeah, I know all that.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Okay, moved by myself, second by Councilor Pion, that the bylaws just read the first time, be read a second and third time, and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal as saying any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Thank you, Councilor. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Notice of motions. Seeing none, I'll move to adjournment. Councilor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Lee. This meeting hereby be adjourned at 7:05 p.m.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I guess we'll move right into general committee. And I have to call this general committee meeting to order. And first off, the councilors, any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I'll note there are no delegations, nothing in administration, nothing in finance, nothing in operations, and we move into development and engineering services. DES 2017-55, Darlene Ryan Robinson Community Center roof replacement, corrections to monetary figure. I don't know what that means. Mr. Costa, thank you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Mr. Mayor, it is respectfully recommended that the monetary figure of the contract award to Skyway Roofing before DES 2017-32 for the Darlene Ryan Corporate Option Community Center at 40 Cross Street be corrected. Total sum of $14,159.40 plus HST. That is the recommendation.
report.
Speakers to the recommendation? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CC 2017-29, terms of reference for joint accessibility advisory committee and introduction of a logo. That's Ms. Delvecchio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's being recommended that the terms of reference as attached as Appendix A for the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee be approved, that the logo as attached as Appendix B be received for information purposes, that bylaw 43-2008 be repealed, that a bylaw be adopted at the special council meeting this evening to adopt the proposed terms of reference. That concludes the report.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for the recommendation? Councilor Eagley.
So move the recommendation.
Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CC 2017-31, enabling accessibility in workplaces and communities fund. Okay, legislative update. List of bills passed during the spring session of the Ontario legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's being recommended that city clerk's report CC-30 be received for information purposes. That concludes the report.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Neal.
So moved.
Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CC 2017-31, enabling accessibility in workplace and communities fund.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation of the report is that staff be authorized to submit a grant application under the Enabling Accessibility in Workplaces and Communities Fund for the consideration of the following project: accessible washrooms at the Elmer Community Center. This concludes the report.
Thank you, Ms. Goulet. Can I get a move for the report? Councilor Neal.
So move the report.
Thank you. Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We have nothing in fire and emergency services. We will be going in camera, so. The general committee will now move into closed session. Immediately following the closed session, council will reconvene into open session to hold a special council meeting to ratify all the reports approved tonight by the general committee and to consider the following bylaws: 71, 2017, 72, 2017. Can I have a motion to move into closed session to discuss a personnel matter, identifiable individuals? Councilor Whalen. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.